The Fate of the Furious is the 8th installment in the Fast and Furious franchise. And let that sink in for a minute. 8th installment. Who would have thought this franchise would have made it to 8 movies? But it did, and here it is, and here I am talking about it. Man. Now, I really like this franchise. I have them all on Blu-ray, and just a quick analysis of what I think of each movie. The first one, obviously, it's a classic. It's still good to this day. Second one's not really that good. Don't care for it that much. Tokyo Drift is my least favorite of the franchise, honestly. But, you know, I can still watch it fine. Fourth one is just like the second one, not really that great. Fast 5, however, is just like, hey, let's reboot this thing and make it great again. And it did. 6, I think, is just a little bit better than 5. I'm honestly conflicted on which one I like more. And I think Furious 7 is really underrated. I honestly think it is. So I know how this franchise is supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun, over-the-top, mindless action, and The Fate of the Furious really does nail it on that. I had a great time with The Fate of the Furious. So in this movie, the unthinkable happens. Dom turns on his family. He goes rogue. And Charlize Theron's character, she's got something she's holding against him, and now Dom has to do whatever she tells him to. Otherwise, no spoilers, but consequences. And so Luke Hobbs, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, now leads the team to get Dom back, or worse comes to worse, take him down. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to start with the negatives first because I want to change it up a little bit. I want to end this video on a high note. So I do have a few issues with this movie, and the first issue is once you find out what Charlize Theron has holding on Dom, the movie starts to drag a little bit. It honestly does. It's, you know, you want to get to the cars, you want to get to them, you know, doing crazy, ridiculous stuff, but it sort of slows down a little bit once you find out why Dom is doing this. Another negative I have kind of ties into the pacing issues. The movie is full of big, you know, exciting action sequences, and then sitting in rooms and talking. Big, exploding action sequences, sitting in the room and talking. You know, it goes on like that for a while, and I honestly don't know how they could have gotten around that yet, but that kind of adds to the slow pacing of the second act. And like I said, I don't know a way around it. It's just something I noticed. And my last negative is how the action scenes are filmed. Now, I'm not talking about the action scenes in general. I'll talk about them when I get to my positives, but if I'm being a little critical about this, then I should talk about how they're filmed. And they're filmed kind of poorly. If you remember Furious 7, it's full of shaky cam, and, you know, there's a fight scene in Furious 7 where, you know, the camera does a full spin. And they do that a couple times in this movie, but it's full of shots like that, and it's honestly kind of distracting. It doesn't take me out of the movie, it's just, you know, you kind of have to look away a few times, otherwise your eyes will start to hurt. Which leads me into my positives. This movie knows what it is when it comes to the action scenes. It's, like I said, it's supposed to be fun, over the top, and this movie really does do that so well. You know, physics don't matter in these movies. They really don't. If you're one of those people that, you know, is expecting a serious, you know, dramatic action movie where physics makes sense, you're gonna hate this movie. This is a totally turn your brain off, just enjoy it type movie, and the action scenes really add to that because they're just so fun to watch, especially when it comes to the third act. I'll get to the third act in a minute. Another positive I have with this movie is that the acting is really great in this movie, and by far the best standouts are Charlize Theron and Vin Diesel. Now, I said this when I left the theater, and I still kind of think it. I think this is Vin Diesel's best performance in this franchise. A lot of people have been saying that, you know, he yells a lot in this movie, which he does. But honestly, when you find out why he's doing all this stuff, it's emotional. It makes all of his yelling make sense. And Charlize Theron, oh my gosh, she's one of my favorite actresses, and she killed it in this movie. I can honestly see her be a Bond villain, a James Bond villain, you know? I can honestly see her doing that. She nailed it in this movie. Now, as I said, this movie is supposed to be fun, over-the-top cheesiness, but also it has some serious moments in it. And honestly, they come into play really good. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel tacked on. It feels like it's needed, and it's actually quite emotional when they get to that serious route in the movie. It honestly does a really great job at that. And now for the third act. There is so much going on in this final scene, this final action scene, that my 13-year-old boy inside of me couldn't handle it. It's like, oh my gosh, there's cars flying all over, and it's like, and then there's guns shooting at them, like, and then there's a big like submarine that pops up. You saw it in the trailer, just and then it chases them. It's so cool, and I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from, but in short term, it's great action. In the last 20 minutes, really good action. So in the end, I had a great time with The Fate of the Furious. It's strictly popcorn entertainment fun. Again, don't go into this movie expecting a very serious, dramatic action movie if you've never seen these movies. Know what you're getting into. Watch the previous movies to know what you're getting into, and you'll have a great time with this movie, I promise. I'm going to give The Fate of the Furious 3.5 stars. I really recommend this movie, even if you haven't seen the Fast and Furious movies. Although I would recommend checking them out before you seeing this one because, yeah. No spoilers, but you're going to want to see the other ones. So when you guys see The Fate of the Furious, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are you kind of in the middle? I want to know your guys' opinions. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, then go ahead and click right here. And I'll see you guys next time.